A 17-year-old boy was left upset and humiliated in Virginia, USA, by the rude comments of one waitress that ended up going viral. The young man chose to get revenge on the woman and the whole restaurant in the best way he knew how. The best part, though? She could not have seen it coming, and nobody anticipated such an unreal turnaround. She now had the eyes of the entire world on her. How would she respond? As a young person, eating out on your own dime is a luxury that many teens forgo. So when you've eventually saved up enough to treat not only yourself but some of your friends as well, you hardly give a thought to what form your money comes in. At that point, it can be plastic, paper, or coins. And while it might not have been on his mind, apparently, this young man was about to make a major faux pas. The 17-year-old in question was none other than Cohen Nolte. He was working as many kids do as a waiter during his senior year of high school for work experience. He also waited tables to bring in some extra money to do the things he enjoyed in life. He didn't realize that the path he was on would change his life forever. Working as a waiter meant that Cohen often got most of his money in tips, and tips tend to be in, well, you guessed it, small change. Cohen received his gratuity in small change, mostly quarters. What was he to do? Now Cohen could make endless trips to the bank after every few shifts, but that seemed like a lot of extra steps before spending his money in the best way he knew how. Taking friends out for food. After what happened, he would have to think twice about spoiling people. Cohen had finally collected a whopping stash of coins and was pretty sure he would be able to take out some friends and leave a great tip for the server too. It wasn't the dinner that was to make waves, but the quarters he paid for it with. He never imagined that such a sweet gesture would cause such a backlash. It wasn't long after the very enjoyable pub lunch with friends that it all turned sour. It was only by chance that Cohen saw the scathing post. It was written by an obviously overly entitled waitress. The post is a picture of Cohen's bill surrounded by the quarters he paid with, accompanied by a nasty caption. Cohen was quick to see the post on Facebook, but it was too late. Everyone who knew him had seen it too. He couldn't control the torrent of emotions that bubbled to the surface. He was feeling hurt and embarrassed that the waitress at his favorite restaurant would post something like that about him. So, what had the rude waitress written that had caused such a stir? And would she get away with it? Cohen was mild-mannered by nature and not one to cause a fuss. He held back the tears at first, but the more he read the waitress' audacious words, the angrier he became. How dare she? And when he realized that they had also ridiculed his mom, he saw red. The post began, "We'll just caption this, how not to pay at a restaurant." But it didn't end there. The worst was still to come. The post continued, "'Cause that's the nicest thing we can think to say about this ridiculousness." While the post is embarrassing enough for any patron, it was the hashtags that really started shaming the young man. Hashtag #NoHama Training was being a direct dig at Cohen, implying that his parents did a bad job raising him. Cohen wasn't going to take this lying down. A strange sense of calm washed over him as he plotted. The nasty waitress, as well as the restaurant, were in for a surprise. Cohen thought carefully about his payback plan. It would require commitment and effort to work. He was after so much more than petty revenge now. No, he'd go a step further. The staff at Beer 88, and particularly that snide waitress, were going to pay. They would never see it coming. It would be spectacular. But then, something unexpected happened, and Cohen knew that it would work in his favor. Posting anything negative online is just never a good look for any company. Once the general public started reading it, they were not shy to tell Beer 88 just how inappropriate their little in-house joke was. The community began to rally for Cohen, and it wasn't long before the restaurant took notice. Beer 88 was quick to take down the offending post because once it started getting negative reviews, it just kept coming. But they weren't quite quick enough because Cohen had already taken a screenshot and posted it to his own page. Little did they know, he was plotting his personal revenge. When Cohen saw the comments flooding in from Facebook users and former patrons of Beer 88, he almost laughed. He knew that he could sit back and let the restaurant feel the wrath of the community that was clearly on his side. After all, they had it coming. But would all the backlash from incensed patrons and Facebook users be enough of a rude awakening for the restaurant? Any normal teenager, or in fact any adult, would probably take this opportunity to complain and moan about how embarrassed and angry they felt by being targeted on social media like this. But not Cohen. He simmered quietly and made a plan. His revenge was far, far sweeter. Cohen had a novel idea, and he wasted no time setting it in motion. It wasn't long before local news outlets caught wind of Cohen's story. He was inundated by interviews, and he stood by his actions and his revenge. "It's just US currency. I'm allowed to use it. It's not illegal. I'm not doing anything wrong," he told WSET. So, what did he decide to do about it? "They said we didn't have any home training," said one of Nalty's friends to WSET. That was dirty. That was one of their hashtags, was #NoHomeTraining. "We couldn't believe they posted it on Facebook," one of his friends said to WSET. If anybody met Cohen, they know it couldn't be farthest things from the truth, Kim Nalty, Cohen's mother, told to WSET. And you know, he's a good kid. But soon, everyone would know just what kind of person Cohen really was. The quarter boy, in honor of the quarters he pays with, decided to take the high road. He did not shame the restaurant or his server from Beer 88 that day. He did something far better. He was intent on turning the awful negative experience into something positive for everyone, including himself. He didn't even mention the restaurant by name. They dug their own social media grave on this one. What he said was simple and inspiring. "Took a few friends out to lunch and only had enough to pay for their meals in quarters. I was blasted on Facebook by the restaurant for paying in quarters. It was not a good date," he wrote. "Then I had a great idea. I love paying for people's meals even if I have to scrape together my last quarters to do so." This whole drama made Cohen realize just how much he loves buying people food, and more importantly, why. So why is Cohen so inspired? His post continues, and soon the genius behind what he is asking for is revealed. Paying for someone's meal can change a really bad day around in just one moment of kindness. I would like to keep this going and make it fun. I am sure there are places out there that wouldn't mind being paid in quarters, and perhaps you can help me out by donating a little to help me pay for their meals. Cohen's incredible idea was to set up a charity campaign. He then started a fundraiser on his own Facebook page to collect donations, all to be used to buy strangers a surprise meal. "We will use 100% of the donations to pay for others' meals and post videos of their reactions. If you would like to be part of my mission, donate here." If you are a restaurant that wouldn't mind a register filled with quarters at the end of the night and a special treat for one of your patrons now and then, please post. "So I know who I won't offend by coming by," Cohen added. And sure enough, there were plenty of restaurants that weren't about to snub Cohen and his small change. The fundraiser took on a life of its own, with people donating money, leaving comments, and complimenting the decisions made by the generous young man. One poster left a message on his page: "I'm so proud of you for putting so much good into the world. If there would only be more people like you, the world would be a more peaceful, trustworthy, and happy place." And the money wasn't bad either. When the fundraiser came to its completion, Cohen had raised a total of $10,148. He took none of the money for himself, instead sticking to his initial goal of helping others. He still buys food for people, but he does other things with his quarters too. Had an awesome time filling up the coin laundry for some sweet folks today. So do all the restaurants really hate being paid in coins? Well, no, they don't. Money is, after all, money. Some restaurants even supported Cohen's campaign with their own donations. Some donated money, others pizza. You can also often see posts of Cohen walking around supermarkets giving out some gift vouchers. Other than his huge heart, there is one other thing that makes him so well supported by his community. A local TV company did a story about Cohen Nalty's campaign, and he kept up his own media presence by cleverly videoing all of his food giveaways. He has treated kids and couples, policemen and students, the homeless and the hungry, and there is no end in sight to what he will do next. Cohen never once thought that his actions would have such a great impact on everyone that read about his mission. His motivation never was to become popular. But his kindness has ensured that he made his way into people's hearts. Everyone is rooting for him, and why not? It's a welcome relief to see people making a positive difference in the world today. As for his revenge is what most people truly need in this day and age: the ability to let go and grow. Beer 88 could learn a few things from Cohen, especially when looking at their attitude toward their paying customers. They later released an apology. They wrote, "It was posted as a joke, intended as a joke, and should be taken as a joke, but totally ruined any real apology when saying that paying in coins is annoying to people that work in the restaurant/retail industry. We try to keep our page funny and relatable, and had no idea that this would be offensive to anyone," the apology continued. Still rather rude when the boy left a $10 tip on a $20 bill. Cohen decided that his habit had given him much more in life than many other things, so he decided to ramp it up. He started intentionally buying small items with large notes, just so he could get pennies back. While his family and friends wondered why he knew exactly what his end goal was, and it would gain a lot of attention. Cohen originally paid in pennies because that was all he had. The generous boy even left a large tip, but now it had become an obsession. He was intentionally getting change everywhere he went so he could collect as many pennies as possible. He would have plans for everything. He just had to be patient and save as many as he could. It would all pay off. Cohen even went as far as to start refusing to spend any of his pennies. He started hoarding them in containers people would start calling him crazy for. It was one of the oddest things they'd seen in a long time. His parents wondered why he'd asked them to start buying 5-gallon water jugs. But they'd soon wonder why once he started taking the empty containers to his room instead of recycling them. Even though Cohen would do anything to get his hands on pennies, he still had rules around this new obsession. He would never take any charity from anyone. He would make sure that any pennies he took were paid for with notes. But why was he collecting them? Soon his parents would find out the truth, and they'd be devastated. Cohen couldn't keep his secret forever, and one day when his parents came into his room, they saw exactly what he had been doing all this time. They had no idea their son was capable of something like this. They see where all of the pennies are going, but it seemed to raise more questions than answers. His parents saw all of the water containers that they had bought now that they were empty. They sat in the corner of his room, but they weren't empty anymore. All of the water was gone, but it was replaced with pennies. They couldn't believe the sheer amount that their son had collected, but the reason was even weirder. They decided to wait for their son to get home so he could explain himself. After he arrived home from school, they asked him about what he had in his room. They needed an explanation. Cohen nervously looked at his feet and started mumbling. They asked him to speak louder, so he told them exactly what was going on. Cohen explained that ever since his Facebook page had gone so viral, he loved the rush. He started to collect pennies when he didn't have to anymore. He would use his bank notes from his salary and exchange them for pennies. But soon, his penny obsession got so intense that he had way too many. He had to think of a place to keep them. The only logical place for him to keep his pennies was in large containers, and the cheapest he could think of were 5-gallon water jugs. But what would he do with them now that he had so many? He told them what he wanted to do with them. It was a strange thing, but would they understand? He told his parents that this was a kind of savings for him, that he wanted to be responsible for his own money and learn how to use it. He thought the pennies would be good because they looked like a lot more when in heavy tubs. But it wasn't like he just had 1 or 2 5-gallon containers. He had 5 of them. That was 25 gallons of pennies, but it didn't end there. He would have to eventually do something with him, wouldn't he? A time would come when Cohen would decide that he had to downscale his obsession. But what would he do? Cohen knew that he had to downscale his operation. It had gotten out of control, and he'd have to get them taken off of his hands. But where would he put them? He had to think of a way to get his money back. He knew it wouldn't be easy, but with a bit of effort, he'd be able to find a way through it. But was it too late? Then it came to him. He jumped up and got ready. He went straight to the garage and looked for one essential piece of equipment. He just needed to find it now. He looked through all of the junk until he saw it sticking out. He grabbed it and pulled. It was heavy, but he was motivated to make it work. Now he just had to load the bottles and be on his way. He managed to load the 5-gallon containers onto his dad's old trolley. It was old, and the wheels got stuck easily, but it was the only thing he had. He was motivated to get to the place he had to go. But where was he going when he walked out of the door with a loaded trolley? Cohen's destination was in fact the bank. It was a short walk, and he knew that it was the only place willing to cash out all of his pennies. It was a hot summer day, and the trolley was heavily loaded. Still though, Cohen managed to get to the bank and made it to the front counter. The teller's eyes went wide at the sight of the sheer amount of pennies. Cohen thought that the teller would judge him harshly, just like the waitress had months ago. But as soon as she looked at the bottles, she smiled. She laughed and told him it was the most interesting thing that had happened to her in a long time. She was happy to help the young man and brought a smile to his face. Cohen couldn't believe that someone was so nice to him. In order to protect the privacy of those depicted, some names, locations, and identifying characteristics have been changed and are products of the author's imagination. Any resemblances to actual events or places or persons, living or dead, are entirely coincidental.